Hi, first of all, very good morning to all of you. Today, we will be discussing about the camera modes. Especially if you see this here, these are the camera modes. So we'll discuss this. Though we shoot mostly on the manual mode, but we have some other modes also on the camera. So let's go through it list by list. So by default, we have an automatic mode. I suspect no one will need any introduction to this mode as it's the mode digital camera owner use it. Auto mode tells your camera to use its best judgment to select shutter speed, aperture, ISO, white balance, focus and flash also to take the shots. This mode will give you nice results in many shooting conditions. However, you need to keep in mind that you're not telling your camera any extra information about the shot you're taking. So basically when your camera is on automatic mode, so it's not you who are controlling the camera is controlled on its own. So there are certain limitations. So basically that's the mode when people who start photography, like amateur people, they can use that, but not for somebody who is professional. Point number 2, let's move to the portrait mode. Portrait mode, you will see a small little logo here. I'll give you a closer look also after this. So when you switch to portrait mode on the camera, your camera will automatically select a large aperture. Means open up the aperture, smaller number, which helps to keep your background little out of focus. That is, it sets a narrow depth of field, ensuring your subject is the only thing in focus and is therefore the center of attention in the shot. Portrait mode works best when you are photographing a single subject. So especially when we go closer to the subject and you want to make a background little blur. But remember, when you are shooting on this mode, your background need to have little perspective. For example, if you are outdoor, you will see the blur difference. But say if I'm shooting indoor now with this wall in the background, so there is nothing to get blurred about, so my background won't go blurred. So that mode is called portrait mode. So point number 3 is a macro mode. Macro, as the name suggests, is a macro, means we move closer to the subject. Macro modes lets you move closer into your subject to take a closer picture. It's great for shooting flowers, insects or other small objects. Different digital cameras will have macro modes with different capabilities, including different focusing distances. When you use macro mode, you will notice that focusing is more difficult as at short distance the depth of field is very narrow, just millimeters at times. Keep your camera and the object you are photographing parallel, or if possible, you will find a lot of it will be out of focus. You will probably also find that you won't want to use your camera built-in flash when photographing close-up objects, or they will be burnt out. Lastly, a tripod is invaluable in macro shots as the depth of field is so small that even moving towards or away from your subject slightly can make your subject out of focus. So macro, at times in these cameras, which are the basic DSLR or even a mobile camera, we have a certain limitations to shoot macro, as when we go into more advanced level, we have macro lenses which can even shoot a smaller button or even as small as the grain of a rice also, but those are special lenses. So we can try with this camera also, and we can see how close we can go in the macro mode. If you're not able to go very close, you can move a little apart from the subject and then try to again focus your subject. So you might be able to focus the subject, right? Landscape mode, we have again another mode in this camera. I'll show you the closer picture. It has a picture like a mountain picture on the rotation on the knob here. So landscape mode. This mode is almost exactly opposite of the portrait mode. In that it sets aperture to a more aperture. In landscape mode, we want to see everything very sharp. So the mode will give more aperture, like means where aperture can be f7 or f8, where you see the picture, more sharpness in the picture. Like in the portrait mode, it was giving picture background little more blurred. So in the landscape mode, it actually works in a vice versa mode. So this mode is almost the exact opposite of portrait mode in that it sets the camera up with a small aperture, large number to make sure as much of the scene you are photographing will be in focus as possible. It's therefore ideal for capturing shots of wide scenes, particularly those with points of interest at different distances from the camera. At times, your camera might also select a slower shutter speed in this mode to compensate for the small aperture. So you might want to consider a tripod or other method of ensuring your camera is still. Then we have a sports mode also here. The sports mode, like by the name defaults, you remember in the class also, we did in the previous class, sports mode is when your shutter speed is fast. So when we set the sports mode in the camera on its own automatic sports mode, so what exactly is doing inside the camera? It's increasing the shutter speed so that somebody is running or somebody is on a bike, somebody is in a car. So very speeding object which can capture by the camera with an increase of shutter speed. So that's called sports mode. So photographing moving object is what sports mode, also called action mode in some cameras, is designed for. It is ideal for photographing any moving objects including people, playing sports, pets, cars, wildlife, etc. Sports mode attempts to freeze the action by increasing the shutter speed. When photographing fast moving subjects, you can also increase your chances of capturing them with panning of your camera along with the subject and or by attempting to pre-focus your camera on a spot where the subject will be when you want to photograph it. This takes practice. So for example, say now somebody is jumping in a very fast mode. So you can already set your focus a little higher where the person is going to jump or run, and then that's your point of focus, so that when you click the picture, you won't go out of the focus shot. So that's what you need a bit of practice for that to be in that mode. Then we have a night mode in this. This is really fun mode to play around with and can create some wonderful, colorful and interesting shots. Night mode is a technique also called a slow shutter sync. It's for shooting in low light situations and set your camera to use a longer shutter speed to help capture details of the background. But it also fires off a flash to illuminate the foreground. If you use this mode for a serious or well balanced shot, you should use a tripod or your background will get blurred. However, if it's also fun to take shots with this handle to purposely blur your backgrounds, especially when there is a situation when light behind your subjects, as it can give a fun and experimental look. Great for parties and dance stuff. So basically night mode, like once we do the manual control of the camera, it's opening your shutter for a longer time, so more light is passing by. So this is what the night mode does. It's by default in the camera, so we can also control it manually also by the speed of the shutter is open for a longer time. Let's move on to the next one, movie mode. I'll come back to the movie mode with a breakup after this, so I'll do this later. Then we have a semi-automatic modes, aperture priority mode, A or AV in some cameras. Then we have a shutter priority mode, which is S or TV. So basically, aperture priority mode is a semi-automatic mode where you can choose the aperture only. Say for example, if I set my aperture to f5, remaining exposure controls like my shutter speed and ISO will be taken care on its own by my camera. So this is what aperture priority. So I can set only the aperture. I can use this mode, say for example I want the background to remain blurred, but I don't have really much time to adjust my manual control, so I can just set the aperture to f, maximum opening of the aperture, to make my background a little blurred. And my remaining settings, by default, the camera will do on its own. So this is what the aperture priority mode is. So this mode is really a semi-automatic mode where you choose the aperture and where your camera chooses the other settings, shutter speed, white balance, ISO, etc. so as to ensure you have a well-balanced exposure. Aperture priority mode is useful when you're looking to control the depth of a field in a shot. Usually a stationary object where you don't need to control shutter speed. Choosing a larger number aperture means the aperture or the opening in your camera when shooting is smaller and less light in. This means you will have a larger depth of field, but that your camera will choose a slower shutter speed. Small number means the opposite, that is your aperture is large, depth of field will be small and your camera will be probably choose a faster shutter speed. Next mode, shutter priority mode or TV. So in this I can adjust the shutter speed and my white balance, ISO and aperture is controlled on its own by the camera. Shutter priority is very similar to aperture priority mode, but it's the mode where you select a shutter speed and the camera and then chooses all of the other settings. You would use this mode where you want to control our shutter speed obviously. For example, when photographing moving subjects like sports, you might want to choose a fast shutter speed to freeze the motion. On the flip side of this, you might want to capture the movement as a blur of a subject like a waterfall and choose a slow shutter speed. You might also choose a slow shutter speed in lower light situation. So basically in shutter priority mode, we can use it, say we are shooting some sports event and we know that our speed needs to at least be 400, because if we slow down on the speed there might be shake in the picture. So we can just set the speed, camera on shutter priority mode and then set the speed to a higher speed mode, so that by default my ISO and the aperture gets taken care of. Then next is my program mode, P. It's called P for Papa, program mode. Some digital cameras have this priority mode in addition to auto mode. In a few cameras, program mode is full auto mode. In those cameras that are both, program mode is similar to auto but gives you a little more control over some other features including flash, white balance, ISO, etc. Program mode has a camera calculate both shutter speed and aperture, given a manually or automatically selected ISO. Higher-end cameras offer partial manual control to shift away from the automatically calculated values. Increasing aperture and decreasing shutter time, or conversely, the difference between program mode and full auto mode is that in the program mode only the exposure is automatic, while other camera setting, example shooting mode, exposure, composition, flash can be set manually. In full auto mode, everything is automatic. And this is the last mode. Now we come on to the manual mode, and after this I'll explain you the movie mode also. But manual mode is something by default it's a professional mode. Here you can control everything starting from the image size to the white balance to the exposure controls to the shutter speed to the colors. If you don't want the flash to pop out, if you want to control the lighting. So manual mode is really good for that. In manual mode you can control everything. So this is the desired mode. But at the same time you should also practice other modes also. So for today, when you do your shoot in some more time from now after seeing this video, you can practice all the modes also today. So I think that's a good idea to rotate the knob here and then practice all the modes here so you can see the difference for yourself. I'll just give an assignment to shoot after this so you can take it further from there. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much.